So down in Portland, we are fighting graffiti with graffiti. You've heard of the expression, fight fire with fire. Well, yeah, that's kind of what we're doing. Graffiti has been out of control in Portland and a lot of these West Coast cities that we talk about all the time. LA, Seattle. Seattle's been battling graffiti, and it's kind of part of that whole broken window theory. You get everything squared away and things are just gonna be better. You're gonna have more businesses wanting to open businesses in the downtown corridor. Well, right now, downtown Portland is really, really struggling to kind of keep business going in general. And graffiti is a known component of that. So let's take a look today. We're going to see what the Graffiti Removal Services, see what they're doing. They're taking a slightly different approach than just your standard, all right, we're going to clean off that ugly graffiti and then we're going to paint it. It'll all look good, for 10 minutes until that tagger comes back that next night and just, works their urban art, right? All right, let's get into it. Let's see what the deal is. Paul Watts with Graffiti Removal Services says that he doesn't consider the stenciled designs to be tags. This is where we've got graffiti fighting other graffiti, but rather a way to abate graffiti in the city. One of the reasons I'm covering this topic today is because a bunch of you guys sent it to me. And also, I've been noticing throughout Seattle in construction projects and areas where there's oftentimes an opportunity for art to go a little sideways, a little bit of urban art to go sideways, meaning, the vandals who tag up cities can perform their art on said construction installations and, fencing around construction installations and all that good stuff, because there aren't people essentially there during the day or night to monitor any of this. So they just figure, it's free reign. Let's just go ahead and paint the town, whatever. But instead, what we're seeing in a lot of these areas is you've got kind of, wouldn't call it a wrap, but it's like a fence wrap, where you've got these cyclone fences, sometimes with razor wire on top, and you've got what looks like to be just kind of a big sign or, wrap on that fence that's already got some kind of graffiti-looking-ish lettering. It looks like graffiti for a fence, surrounding a city block or something. And you look at that and you go, oh, okay, well, it's along the lines of graffiti, but it's not. And that's some of what's going into, that's some of the mindset that's going into this. All right, if we tag up this area here, and by tag up, and I'm going to show you in a second what that looks like. If we tag this area up, the taggers will respect the fact that we've already pre-tagged this, we've marked our territory, and they won't do it. Now there is, from what I understand, there is a little bit of honor among taggers for not tagging up city murals. So you've got murals on, say, the, sidewalks and the walls underneath an overpass. You have a nice city mural going there. Now the taggers, kind of gentlemen or whatever agreement on, okay, we're not going to go just destroy that, but we are going to destroy the boarded up, walls of businesses that are literally just plywood, because that seems to be fair game. That seems to be consistently fair game. And that's what this story is. Let's take a little look so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about, and I'll walk through what this looks like. So here we go.
Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. Or in this case, graffiti with graffiti in downtown Portland.
Well, I wouldn't really call it tagging buildings, but we are cleaning them up. Usually we have the property owner knows that we're doing it. We're putting something up there that, sparks a little bit conversation.
And they're not just a conversation starter. The stenciled designs
We have the PDX rose, 2 Sasquatches holding a salmon,
are proving to be an effective tactic to ward off vandals.
Well, I've been in business here in Portland about 10 years, and really like murals in town, right? If you put a mural up, they have a little bit of a code of ethic that they won't hurt the mural, they don't tag the mural.
Paul Watts is the owner and operator of Graffiti Removal Services. Over the past couple of years, he says he's personally seen it get worse.
A lot of the plywood in the buildings that are boarded up, they kind of invite graffiti a little bit, especially the plywood. So we're going around, we're painting the plywood a couple different colors, painting over the graffiti, and then adding kind of a holiday touch to it with a couple stencils that we've made up to kind of hopefully detract the graffiti a little bit.
Okay, there you go. So that's, essentially what they're doing. Now the question is, will it work? I think it will work for, they won't tag over the top of those actual stencils, but they're going to use all of that other area. I think they go ham on that. We'll have to wait and see. Don't have a lot of feedback back yet on this. But another story I was reading was that Salvation Army in Portland got just rocked from graffiti standpoint, people leaving trash outside their store. It makes it really tough for folks to want to go into their local Salvation Army store. It's gotten that bad. So they did this massive cleanup. And then like a night later, just this huge graffiti tag. I mean, like 10 feet tall and 10 feet wide, just enormous, over the exact same thing that they had. So they essentially just created a clean canvas, if you will, for these taggers. That is just so annoying. Huge non-graffiti fan here. If you're new here to the channel, I think it's illegal. I think you should be thrown in jail. And like I was joking with somebody earlier that sent me this story as well. You know who you are. Thank you. How about 2 years in jail, $1,000 fine? 2 years in jail, $2,500 fine. You got to make it hurt. Maybe it's a year in jail. I don't know. What would be enough to, make you think twice about picking up that can of paint and going, you know what? I'm just going to, I'm going to subject the whole city of Portland to my version of art on the side of this very public-facing building. What would it take? A couple of grand, couple of years imprisonment? And then we get down okay, are we really in Portland? Are we really going to imprison, graffiti artists, vandals? No, because we're not able to imprison people actually doing the real crimes, right? Crimes against humanity. This is a crime against a building. This is a crime against other people's property. But from that standpoint, in a city like Portland, I think if you're a building owner, you got to do whatever you can do to slow down the graffiti. But unfortunately, I don't think you're gonna. All right, let's get into the actual body of this story. You don't have to go far in Portland to find buildings, walls, and signs covered in graffiti. It's certainly nothing new, but state and local leaders have poured money into the cleanup efforts earlier this year, hoping to lessen the problem. Some of the feedback I had that kind of put me onto the whole graffiti thing. I mean, I've seen the graffiti in Portland. It's bad. It is bad. It's just, it's not a good look, right? It's a terrible look. But I had an officer from Portland come up to Seattle, and one of the comments, he went to the same concert I did. We didn't go to the concert together. It was Pet Shop Boys and New Order, 80s pop, whatever it is. So his observations after being a police officer and currently a police officer in Portland is there's less graffiti in Seattle. And I think I think Seattle has a fair amount of graffiti. I honestly do. But city of Seattle kind of got ahead of this early and has been cleaning things up and has done, I think, a pretty good job cleaning things up. Not out of the woods by any means at all. There are areas of the city that you go to and you're like, oh, that is horrific. But the comparison is Seattle to Portland just in general. Portland has a lot more graffiti. I think their graffiti has been escalated much higher than other cities. So pound for pound, Portland's probably got graffiti for days. Now, a local crew, Graffiti Removal Services, contracted by the city, is fighting back in an interesting way, putting up what is essentially preventative graffiti. I wouldn't call this graffiti. I would literally call this public art stencils, right? Okay. I mean, pleasant. They're okay. They're fine. I wouldn't really call it tagging buildings, said Paul Watts, owner of Graffiti Removal Services. We're cleaning them up. Usually the property owners know that we're doing it. So there's that whole permission thing, right? Hey, can we put some stencils up in your building? Yes. wildly opposite to taggers that come by in the middle of the night and just go ham. We just had a couple of taggers here in Seattle get arrested for doing $300,000 worth of damage to buildings. 300,000. One of them was named Eager, was his tag, his nickname for being a tagger. And the other one was Satan. One of them did 200 grand worth of damage. The other did 100 grand damage. That's two taggers, two of Seattle's most prolific taggers. And they were also involved in Portland as well. So, go down to Portland for a little weekend of tagging, come back up to Seattle. Just spread the filth around. We are putting something up there that speaks a little bit of that sparks a little bit of conversation, meaning, what's that? What's going on there? All right. That's certainly better than graffiti, but I don't know long term if it's going to take that graffiti artist and say, I'm putting down my can of spray paint today because just don't believe in, vandalizing other people's properties anymore with urban art. We have the PDX Rose. We have the two Sasquatches holding a salmon and walking over the hillside. Just something fun. So bottom line is they go through, they clean up the graffiti, they get that all squared away, they paint over it, and then they use that to overlay these designs. Sasquatch holding a salmon. Who doesn't want that? I mean, that just sounds like Pacific Northwest, right? And then you've got the PDX Rose. Okay. Yeah. Unique to Portland. All right. That's cool. And I'm totally for it. Anything to get rid of graffiti. Anything. But are these efforts just a waste of time? Because the urban artists, they're just going to be back doing their thing, right? So is this just a short-term solution for a long-term problem? To me, the long-term problem is you got to throw these people in jail. You got to make it hurt. You got to fine them, whatever. Hey, you got an outstanding warrant for graffiti. You can't renew your license. Oh, hey, yeah, you've got an expired license. Jail time for you. Are we going to go down these roads in a city like Portland? It certainly doesn't feel like it. So continuing on with the article. So, I've been in business in Portland here about 9 or 10 years and really like murals in town. If you put a mural up, they, meaning the graffiti taggers, have a little bit of a code of ethics that they will not hurt the mural. They don't tag murals, he said. And you will oftentimes see that. These elaborate murals, they know how much time and effort goes into it, and they kind of respect that as, another form of art. It's not their art because most of the graffiti I see just looks terrible. It just looks like somebody's, spray painting a bunch of, symbols and just, reading and writing that you just can't really understand. And it's just messy and it's, you got paint dripping down. There's been a couple of examples of graffiti that I've seen in my lifetime where I'm like, wow, that is pretty cool. That's pretty cool. All right, I'll give that one. And like Banksy. But that's one out of how many million graffiti artists across the world? Yeah. The vast majority of what I see, almost exclusively, does not count as art. It counts as vandalism on somebody else's property, on somebody else's building. A lot of the plywood in the buildings that are boarded up, they kind of invite graffiti a little bit. We're going around and painting the plywood a couple of different colors, painting over the graffiti, and then adding kind of a holiday touch to it with a couple of stencils that hopefully detract the graffiti. Anything to slow it down. That's the bottom line here, right? Watt's team responds to cleanup calls across the town, although the focus recently has been downtown and the Central East Side. So downtown Portland has one of the worst rates of businesses coming back, of foot traffic coming back to the downtown core. And we know that from cell phone activity. Out of 62 big major cities, Portland ranked 60th. Almost dead last in its ability to revive after the pandemic. And a lot of that has to do with what's going on with homelessness and drugs and decriminalizing drugs and letting people just wander around with cans of spray paint, just doing their own thing, because it makes the city look terrible. And then regular tax-paying citizens don't want to go to downtown because it's scary and you might, be involved in violence there that you didn't start. That's a very great reality in downtown Portland. Folks that live there, they want to say, it's always been quirky and we've always got stuff going on. Yeah, but you've also got record levels of homicide as well. And that doesn't cover just downtown Portland. So you got this downtown Portland narrative that is, I believe, is accurate, which is it's not a place where people are going to run businesses right now. And the businesses that are there are suffering. I'm going to cover a restaurant. It's a restaurant themed topic in downtown Portland. They're coming up with all kinds of excuses as to why the restaurant business in downtown Portland is down. Hey, it's crime. It's crime. No matter what. That is what is detracting people. Not only crimes against the stores there or the whatever it is, if you've got you got some kind of portable food company, maybe you've got a cart or you've got a food van, whatever, food truck, whatever. Now, you don't have a lot of people wandering around looking for that. And so, it's just, there's not enough business there to make it go. Yeah, it's a tough time for downtown Portland. And everybody understands, all right, we got to get this going. And people understand in Seattle as well, hey, we got to get this going. We got to get business coming back to the downtown core. And that's essential because you got the whole tax base, you've got real estate there. It kind of drives business from the downtown to everywhere else. And if you don't have business being driven out of there, your downtown is going to suffer. And Portland's is right now. It is. Everywhere in the city will see us out there eventually, Watt said. The crew and I kind of dubbed this the Rose City Rebound Plan. All right, I'm down for that. I am down for any plan. But knowing what I know and having followed all these stories, until you make the pain, until you make this painful to be a graffiti artist and just leave your mark all over town, I don't think you're going to have much of a let up in the actual acts taking place of vandalism across these cities. I just really don't. Why would this slow down? I talk about this with other forms of crime. One day is somebody that's been, robbing people's cars or, stealing people's cars or jacking people's cars, seems to be a really major outbreak right now. Are they just one day going to put down their tools of the trade and go, you know what? I've made enough money stealing people's cars. I think I'm just going to stop. No, they're not. Same thing with graffiti artists. They're not going to stop. You got to make the pain commensurate to, the act that they are doing and the amount of money that this costs taxpayers. Because let's be honest, the city, they're going out there and cleaning all this stuff up with our taxpayers' dollars and rinse, repeat, literally rinse, repeat, rinse the paint off the sides with all kinds of cleaner, repeat and go. So this is one tactic that I think will have a small amount of impact, positive impact, but large scale. No, don't expect this to be the be all and end all. But I'm glad to see that it's out there because it's just one more thing that's like, all right, here's the positive that we're trying to do. This is what we're trying to do to combat this stuff. But that's a massive uphill battle in a city like Portland. The rebound plan also has a proactive component. I have people out there walking the city daily, going out there and finding the graffiti, reporting it back to us. And then we go out and remove it and clean it before anybody else calls. Of course, Portlanders can still call and report graffiti they'd like to have removed. On the city's website, you can fill out an application, and if the graffiti removal falls within the scope of what workers cover, they'll go out and take care of the problem, and then the graffiti artist will come right back in within a 24-hour time period and just, ruin the, efforts of somebody that's legit trying to clean up a city. I see graffiti as another indication of failed city politics. Because if you can't control the graffiti artists in your town, you certainly can't control all other forms of crime going on, right? It's a control issue. If you've let this cat out of the bag go, Portland certainly has, Seattle certainly has, LA certainly has, a lot of these cities have. And it's because it goes along with the whole notion of you know what? If you don't respect this city, we're going to throw you in jail. But you know what? There's no respect for Portland right now. There's no respect at all, right? So why wouldn't this continue? That's the question of the hour. And we've got all these things going on right now. We're trying to, work out graffiti. We're trying to get businesses to come into the downtown cores, trying to get employees going back to the buildings. That is a real struggle ongoing right now, right? I don't know how many stories I've read, but I know you've read, a bunch as well. And it's kind of like we went through this whole, we'll never work in a downtown corridor again. We'll never work in those high rises because, COVID, and we might get it. Now all that's kind of over. We're used to the whole idea of COVID. You might get it, and you might have to go to the hospital. Probably not. The odds are. But the overall odds is you might get a little sick, but you're going to make it. You're going to live because we've got vaccines now, and, you want to go down that whole road and do all those things. But some of the after effect, that's what we're dealing with right now. Another one is the eviction moratoriums are finally being lifted in all of these West Coast cities. And so you're going to see a spike. You're going to see a spike in evictions. That's just going to happen. So it's taken this many years for all of this stuff to kind of get focused on. And now graffiti is a big one in Portland. And I know it's been a big one in other cities. New York City, some of the major news stories that were carried out back in the day was, look at the graffiti in New York City. It's out of control, because that indicated, just lack of respect for law and authority about, just basically taking a poop on a city wall with your art. Crazy stuff, right? So vandalism, that's what graffiti is. Vandalism. And to me, you got to make the consequences fit the crime. And until you do so, I don't think a lot will happen. But I'm more than happy to look at a stencil of a couple of Bigfoot or Sasquatch, whatever you want to call them, holding, salmon between them, or a Rose City. That's better than some guy's tagger name up there for sure. But is it a response that's going to work long term? No, it's not. So expect to see more graffiti. That's the way I see it. And you're here to listen to my opinion. So that's it. All right. That's all I got on this one. Thanks so much for being here. We'll catch up soon. See you in the next one. Bye for now.